welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Well, welcome everybody to another episode here on Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thank you for your time today, wherever you're listening, whether it be in the hospital, in an office building, on a jog, wherever it may be. We thank you for your time and attention. And today I'm super excited. We have a very special guest today, a husband, a father, an Air Force family medicine physician, real estate investor. That's what I'm excited to talk about, an outdoors enthusiast. He's passionate about teaching physicians how investing in real estate can give them the freedom to practice medicine and live life how they want to. Dr. Alex Schloe, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Awesome. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, really excited. And I get the chance to talk with you, it was about a week ago, and kind of get caught up on some of the things that you're doing now. And I'm excited to talk about those. But before we jump into that, I always like to just get a little bit of background and talk about what led you into medicine. So tell the listeners just a little bit about your journey so far in medicine.
Yeah, absolutely, Brett. Thanks. I always wanted to be a physician, always wanted to be a doctor. My mom's got pictures of me when I was like 3 years old in Halloween, dressed up in scrubs and a little surgical mask. So I think it started there, but really it was as I got older, my mom got pretty sick and was in and out of the hospital. And that really kind of gave me the drive to want to be a physician. And our family medicine physician, she actually worked for, and we always saw her, out and about at our sporting events or out and about on the town. And so it was really cool to see. And she also took care of me and my brother. I have a twin brother, my dad, and then my grandparents. So it was really cool to see that kind of full scope family medicine. And so I always wanted to do family medicine. Went to undergrad at Christopher Newport University, studied pre-med there in cellular molecular biology. I'm a total nerd. Then went to med school at the Medical College of Virginia, now otherwise known as VCU School of Medicine, in Richmond, Virginia. Had a great time there and learned a lot. When I was in college at CNU and found out I got accepted into medical school, I applied for the HPSP program through the Air Force, which is the Health Promotions Scholarship Program. And essentially, if you get accepted to the scholarship program, the Air Force will pay for your medical school. You'll get a little stipend, little signing bonus, and they'll pay for your school. And you do some trainings each summer with the Air Force Officer Training School and so forth. But went to med school in Richmond, had a great time, knew I wanted to do family medicine throughout all of med school, got into a inner city and rural kind of honors program. So really spent a lot of time in free clinics and working with underserved population, which I really love. Then went to residency at Eglin Family Medicine residency in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So got to live at the beach for 3 years, although I didn't have a lot of time to enjoy it, but it was a great time and great training. So did my residency there. That was an active duty Air Force residency, and then now stationed in Colorado Springs at Schriever, now Space Force Base. But again, I'm Air Force. So that's kind of a little bit of my journey to get us here to Colorado Springs.
Very cool. A couple of things jumped out to me. You have a twin brother.
Yeah.
What does he do?
He works for the government. Okay. Can't really say a lot of what he does,
Right.
but I will say he's way cooler and more impressive than I am. So,
No, that's funny. So, I actually have a very close friend of mine, a colleague, who they are family physician, and they're twins. So both of them are family physician and twins. So I had to ask for sure.
Yeah, Andrew, my brother, is as far from medicine as you can get.
Oh yeah, interesting. Do you have other brothers or sisters?
I have a stepbrother named Aaron. He actually graduates from high school next week. So excited to head back home to Virginia and see him graduate. And looking forward to it.
So the parents have the spread then, man. How, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 30. Brother's 30. And then my stepbrother is, I guess 18 at this point. So so crazy. My dad and stepmom remarried, and Aaron was 3, and now he's graduating high school. Time just flies by.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So I was actually curious about, and I mean, some of the listeners may be curious about this too. What's the difference between military medicine and like a conventional path in medicine? Like, what are some things that stand out to you?
Yeah. Well, there's pros and cons to it. I can kind of talk a bit on both of those. In terms of residency training for family medicine, they're similar. We do probably more OB care, more trauma and ER care than a civilian residency program does. So that's a little bit of difference there. And then, of course, we have a lot more military specific trainings and exercises that we're involved in throughout residency. In terms of practicing family medicine where I am now, it really probably doesn't look a lot different than a private practice, seeing, frankly, more patients than we should be seeing in a day and working way longer. But similar clinic scenario where you see the patients there. So not a whole lot of difference on the day to day. And then, of course, we do have, we have to do our PT test and military specific training, things that we get involved in. But I feel like you get a little bit more of kind of trauma medicine, tactical medicine. Frankly, I think probably a little bit more well-rounded residency program with more inpatient than you would get in a civilian practice, but I don't really have a comparison. So
right.
Not a whole lot day-to-day difference, but certainly a lot less control where you live.
Yeah, that's a big piece.
A lot less job control as well. A lot of what we have to do and how many patients we have to see is dictated by other folks, which can be frustrating. And but overall, really gratifying to serve. Always wanted to be in the military. Really cool patient population to get to serve. I'm one of the few family med docs in the Air Force who still gets to take care of active duty patients, retirees, and dependents. So I get to kind of keep a really full spectrum family medicine practice. A lot of my friends from residency, they see a lot of either active duty only or dependents only. So kind of miss the in-between piece. So
yeah. Interesting. And so far in the journey, what has been the biggest challenge for you in the medical journey so far?
Probably, that's a tough question. I think burnout, honestly, frankly, is a very real thing. And I think that the demands that are put on physicians of all specialties can be quite taxing at times and a little bit excessive. There was a recent study that was done that was looking at if we were to follow guidelines to a T in a family medicine clinic and see a normal patient impairment for the day or patient load for the day, it would take 23 hours to actually follow the guidelines to a T. And so, I think that a lot of times it's just see more, do more with less time. And I would be remiss if I didn't say there's definitely been some points throughout my practice that I've been pretty burnt out. And it's been largely just due to things that are circumstantially outside of my control. And so that's definitely been a struggle. And that's really honestly led me to focus more on real estate. So I can have that freedom in the future, potentially to practice medicine how I want, whether that's going back to work in the free clinic, working part-time, something along those lines, or staying in the Air Force. So we'll see.
Yeah, interesting. So learning that difference of investing in your future from these challenges already of the burnout piece, kind of circling back to that, what do you think that your biggest opportunity has been up to this point then, Alex?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think I'm, one, really blessed with amazing wife and supportive family. And I think that's been really helpful throughout the journey of residency and beyond. I think, opportunity wise, that is outside of professional opportunities really has been real estate and just the flexibility that's offered, the kind of, less fear from a financial perspective, having that passive income or semi-passive income come in and cash flow with our rental properties. So that's been a great opportunity for us. And honestly, we've just walked in and gotten some just really awesome partners, and we can talk more about that potentially, but that's really helped with our growth and our, kind of understanding about real estate, as well as just learn so much from getting partners who complement our skill set very well. So that's kind of a roundabout answer, but yeah.
Well, so a couple of things I want to pick apart there, the partners thing for sure, because that's a huge piece. And when we talk about leverage, the relationship leverage is massive, and finding the right partner is massive.
Mhm.
Another thing is you've got a group called Physicians and Properties, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's
That's
called.
correct,
So
yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
get into that group and some of the benefits that you're bringing to that group, and how the listeners can get into that group. But I also want to let everybody know your journey, not only in medicine, but tell us a little bit about your journey in real estate, like from just med school into now you've got this group called Physicians and Properties. And what was the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I was always the kid growing up who was looking at all those real estate booklets of houses that were for sale. So I was always kind of interested from that regard. When I got into med school, I remember walking around Richmond, Virginia with my dad. We were looking at apartments. And we got a signing bonus, $20,000 signing bonus for the Air Force. And my dad said, why don't you think about buying a duplex, rent out one side, living in the other, fixing it up during
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I did like, a lot of sons do, and I didn't listen to him, and I didn't buy that duplex. But, Dad had figured out the house hacking piece before that really became a thing. And I did not end up buying the duplex, which I do regret. But that planted a little seed. And, I don't know if Dad really knows that, but that planted a little seed from a real estate perspective. And I knew that once I got out of med school and got in residency, I was going to buy either a small multi-family property or a single family home that we'd fix up and rent out. And so I did. We bought a house in Florida for $58 with a physician loan. So it cost me $58 out of pocket. I joke around that, it was like a Taco Bell dinner, for, actually it's a pretty big Taco Bell.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. For a family. Yeah.
But still incredible. That's what it cost me out of pocket, because there's a title fee that they couldn't cover. But I think that is such an incredible product that physicians don't really know exists or take advantage of. No money down. A lot of times you can get up to 1.5 million approval for a mortgage, which is probably too much, but,
you're talking about the doctor loan?
Yeah, the physician mortgage loan. Yeah. No money down, no PMI. It's a really great loan product. And I think it can really jumpstart your journey if it's used correctly, which is, I think, what we did. We bought a house for $58 out of pocket. We fixed it up during residency. And now we actually rent it to a family medicine faculty doc over at Eglin, where I did residency. And it cash flows like a champ. And so that was the start. While we were in Florida and in residency, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then every real estate book I could, and listening to all the Bigger Pockets episodes.
Nice.
And I'm in a group called From Military to Millionaire. David Perret, he was a Marine who just documented his journey from being a Marine active duty to becoming a millionaire. It was largely through real estate. And in that, there's a mastermind called the War Room. And I joined that, and that's been a game changer. Met my two of my current partners there. And that's been incredible. We bought a couple Airbnb properties, one in LAJ, Georgia, that we actually sold recently. And then we have a Airbnb up in the mountains in Colorado in Blackhawk, which is this really unique geodesic dome property. And that thing frankly prints cash. It's been incredible. Oh, wow. We house hacked our primary house here in Colorado Springs. We rent out the basement on Airbnb as a midterm rental. So we pretty much live mortgage free in Colorado Springs, which is awesome. And then we have a couple assisted living homes. And that's kind of where we've focused is assisted living going forward. And so that's really where we're devoting a lot of our time. And that's me and two of my partners that I met through the War Room, and one of them I'm stationed at Eglin with. So it's been great. And, my goal is kind of like everyone else, I feel like, try and hit $10,000 a month in semi-passive cash flow. I'm trying to do that by June of 2025, because that's when I could get out of the Air Force. And so I think having that kind of buffer will allow me to practice medicine how I want. So that's kind of a roundabout of how I got into real estate and what our portfolio looks like. Mm-hmm. And certainly more than happy to dive into any of those properties. I realized as a doctor that we get so much medical training and so much education, but we do not get any financial education.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate for the most part, make really good incomes and have the capability to save a lot of money. And, I was fortunate to have all my med school paid for, and I paid off all my college loans while I was in med school with a little stipend that I got. And so hit residency debt free and got out of residency debt free. And so the military was very beneficial from that regard. but I think physicians have, the potential for large income generation, but not the education to especially in real estate and the benefits that can have for you. And there's so many of them, in so many different ways to invest in real estate. So that's kind of how Physicians and Properties came to be. Frankly, honestly, I thought it was going to be like 100 members that joined it, throughout the whole life of Physicians and Properties. I think we're over 900 and something now. Wow. And it's been really cool. Hoping to build that out more. Going to start a podcast soon. Dr. Tom Burns, who's the rich doctor, is going to be on there, and some other just really stud real estate investors who are also physicians. And the goal is just, show physicians how investing in real estate can provide you the freedom to live life and practice medicine how you want. So really going all in on that, and just want to provide as much value as possible for folks.
It's very interesting. And you had mentioned your dad. I was just talking about Tom Burns on the last show we recorded. With Shayla, and we were talking how it came up was planting the seed, and your dad planting that seed with the duplex. It was the same way with Tom Burns planting that seed. The seed for him was the Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? We talked about that recently too.
Right.
The same way with our kids, what we're doing. And I think you and I have even talked about this, the board game, right?
Yep.
So there's different ways that we can plant seeds to start this journey. So for the physicians out there listening who are interested in, taking that step and, investing in themselves because of that lack of financial peace. It takes a seed, right? It takes a seed, then it takes action to turn those thoughts into reality. So in your opinion, what would be a good place to start? I said community is massive. Physicians and Properties is a great place. You've got a Facebook group. Right. And Instagram, and we'll let all the listeners know how they could reach you. So community is a big piece. And you mentioned that the military to millionaire piece. Yeah. Where do you think that, somebody coming into residency, or maybe they're in med school thinking about this, they know they need to do something, or maybe they're set in their place, they have their own practice now. I mean, where should they start?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of great resources out there. White Coat Investor, certainly is one of the first ones that pop into my mind. I think they do an amazing job of like kind of an overall general financial education, a little bit less of the real estate piece. Bigger Pockets. I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners, especially any that are involved in real estate, have heard of Bigger Pockets. If you haven't, that's certainly a great place to start from a real estate perspective. That tons of podcast episodes, multiple different podcasts that exist. So you can learn a ton there. And I've really spent a lot of time consuming that content when I was getting started. We're hopeful, that Physicians and Properties down the road, as we try and build out more of the educational piece and get a website going and the podcast and so forth, will be a great place for folks to start as well. It's a one-man shop and Physicians and Properties. It's just me and working a very full-time job. So trying to, provide as much value as I can in education as I can going forward. And I think the podcast will be really helpful for that. But I think, I think there's just a lot of good resources that exist. And then, of course, the Rich Doctor book that Tom Burns wrote is excellent. It's Why Doctors Don't Get Rich by Tom Burns. And that's an excellent book with a lot of resources. It's a little bit more real estate heavy because he invests a lot in multifamily and commercial properties, but a really good place to start and hit a lot of your basics as well. So there's plenty of resources available. But I think the big thing is what you said, it's that seed being planted. And then really the biggest part is just taking action. And the way that you can do that, or at least be accountable to that, is get into a community of like-minded individuals who are going to encourage you and pull you up the mountain with them, and I think that real estate is a perfect vehicle to get you up the mountain of financial freedom.
Yep. And it's all about the buy. Yeah. It's all about the buy, knowing where to buy, how to evaluate it out front. Yeah. And I always encourage everybody to build your system or your process from the solution, reverse engineer. And, do you manage your Airbnbs by yourself? Or tell me a little bit about that. You've got a full-time job practicing medicine. How do you manage the Airbnbs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Systems. We do manage them on our own. Have a couple partners, as I mentioned. But yeah, systems. So we use Turnover B&B, or Turno now it's called, to manage cleaners. So as soon as a booking comes in, the cleaner gets a notification, they accept it. So then they automatically know I need to clean on this date. It pays them through the platform automatically, which is great as well. We use Guesty, which is kind of a PMS, host services and messaging platform. So that does a lot of automated messages for us, and they're all personalized. And if you were the guest, you wouldn't know that it's not really me like typing all these messages up. It would take forever. And so that's really helpful for us as well. We use Price Labs. It helps as an automation tool to help adjust pricing for Airbnbs going forward. And then we have like smart locks on all the doors that automatically set to the last 4 digits of the guest phone number. And it's that for the duration of their stay. And so that automates things as well. We use the Nest thermostats too, so we can kind of keep tabs on what the heat and AC looks like. And when guests aren't there, can adjust that appropriately, and then have all the bills on auto pay. So we try and make everything as systematized and automated as possible, because you're right, don't have a lot of time to manage these properties. And, but it really, hasn't been too bad. Of course, it's always at the most inconvenient time that something happens. Like, right before we got just a deep freeze and a ton of snow at the Dome up in the mountains of Colorado, the hot tub heater, we thought the hot tub heater went out, and turns out it was some faulty wiring outside of the electrical outlet and on the outside outlet. And it's always the worst time that something comes up. But realistically, with good systems, it probably takes me less than 30 minutes a week to manage the Airbnbs that we have. And at one point that was 3, now it's 2. But systems are really the name of the game.
Back through those one more time. The Turno, is that what you called it?
It used to be called Turnover B&B. Now it's called Turno. They just changed the name for some reason.
Turno?
Turno. Yeah, that's
Turno.
The cleaning platform. So you can, it's really cool. You can, when you're opening up a Airbnb in whatever area you are, you put your address in, and it automatically, and you can put in your details like 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, square footage. You can put a checklist of what you want done, and that automatically gets sent out to all the available cleaners in the area. And then if they like your property or want to work on your property, they'll send you a bid, and you can accept them and add them to your team. We were getting all the time, especially in Georgia, we were getting all the time like, oh, when's the next clean? Having to send like a screenshot of the calendar over. And then they're like, well, I'm confused. What does this line mean? And that line mean? Right. And it was just a mess. So that's been a game changer for us, because they know right when to clean. And we have a lot of turnover for our properties, because luckily they're booked out pretty well. And so that's really helpful for the cleaner to stay on task.
And then there was the automated communication platform. Does that integrate directly with the Airbnb platform? So the messages are inside? Interesting.
Yeah, it does. That's called Guesty for hosts. There's a bunch of different ones, but that one's called Guesty. It does. It integrates with Airbnb and VRBO. I think they're adding some other features to integrate with some of the other platforms like HipCamp and a couple of the smaller ones. But you essentially just set that up, and you can even do your whole listing through that if you want to. But we did them both on the Airbnb and VRBO platforms themselves, and then connected to Guesty. And
Guesty is Guesty.
It is, yeah. Guesty. Guesty. Yep. Guesty for host, I think it's called. Yep. And it's really cool. You can set it up. You set up your messaging where, when they inquire about booking, it sends an automatic message, and when they book, and a few days before, and you can really just automate the entire process and have those messages sent out and personalized. And it really just makes things so much easier, and the guests really feel cared for. And of course, there's plenty of questions that come through that Guesty can't answer, and then we'll respond back. But it's really helpful from that perspective, and provides a lot of information for guests coming in. Take some time to get it set up, but worth it. Absolutely worth it.
And then the other one you mentioned was the smart locks that automatically code to their phone number. What smart locks are you using to do that?
Well, I'm going to butcher the name. I think it's Schlage or Schlage, Schlage. Yeah, who knows? If anyone knows how to say it properly, let me know for sure.
Let's call it. You said it perfect, Alex. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we use those, the Encode version of that. They were really hard to get for a while because of the whole supply chain mess, but I think they're a lot more available now. Guesty integrates with that lock, and so when a guest books, part of your your booking or your
puts
Airbnb
a smile
platform,
on my face, man. That makes me happy.
I know, systems, they're the best.
Yeah.
As soon as they book, you have the last 4 digits of their phone number and it automatically sets. And then I think for us, it's 3 days out of the booking, it'll send and say, hey, here's all the check-in instructions. Here's your code. It's the last 4 digits of your phone number. And it just makes it so much easier. And then, when it's checkout time, it deletes their code and goes from there. So that's been really nice. Occasionally you'll have a hiccup or two we've noticed with VRBO where sometimes it won't reset the lock or set it appropriately. And I mean, it takes like 30 seconds to put the code in for folks. But yeah, that's been really, really nice. I recommend that to everybody. And then we have like Ring cameras too, just on the exterior, just to keep tabs on what's going on there. And in Colorado, it's cool because we'll see moose just walk by the Ring camera and it's awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of systems out there to make short-term rentals more passive and able to manage on your own. Certainly full property management, there's a time and a place for that as well. And there's some really good property management companies that are out there, but it's more time intensive. So they're going to charge you, 25%. And so that can be a game changer for folks to be able to self-manage and pocket that extra 25%.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great information, Alex. Thank you for that so much. And I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the other piece of real estate that you've partnered with other investors here. Tell us a little bit about that assisted living and how you got started in that. Yeah,
assisted living. I think there's so much potential with assisted living, and assisted living is kind of your broad umbrella term that can encompass a lot of different things, like assisted living homes for elderly care, transitional living homes, behavioral homes, ventilator homes, et cetera, can all kind of follow under that umbrella. We love it. For residential assisted living for elderly care, we're already 1 million beds short in America as of right now. For residential assisted living. So there's huge potential going forward for that. And unfortunately, given the current climate, there's also a huge potential and need for transitional living homes. Right now, we just have closed recently this year on 2 transitional living homes. So those are for residents that are in intensive outpatient treatment for drug abuse, alcohol abuse, et cetera. And we are trying to buy A-class homes to provide them this excellent home for them to transition out of into real life in the future. And that's a really cool model because if I back up, there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can buy the home and own the operation, or you can buy the home, own the real estate, and lease out the operation, which becomes way more passive. And that's what we've been doing just because myself and my 2 other partners, we all have very full-time jobs. And so we've been doing that, and the houses cash flow quite well. So they're able to pay a pretty high lease fee. And typically those are commercial leases. So they're responsible for everything except for the mortgage. Yeah, it's kind of like a double net light. We're responsible for the roof, the HVAC, and then of course mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And but it's nice because it makes it fairly passive going forward. A lot of work up front, finding, the right homes, the homes that can be licensed and the operators. But after that piece, it's quite passive, which is awesome. And they cash flow, frankly, as good, if not better than a lot of Airbnb properties. So that's really where we've pivoted. And then we're working right now on a assisted living home. It's off market for elderly care. That we're hoping to get under contract tonight or tomorrow. So, so we'll see. So that'll be awesome. That's going to be our first investment that we're going to need to raise money for. So excited and terrified about that at the same time, but it's a heck of a deal. So you need to, not let those self-limiting beliefs or fear creep in, and it'll be a great opportunity for investors. So we're excited. We're going all in. That's our one thing right now. I have shiny object syndrome too, though. So I'm always like looking at all these other things, mobile home parks, RV parks, all the above. So I'm really trying to focus on assisted living right now. And
so I heard you say one thing. Have you read that book?
I have. Great book. Book. The one thing I'm not very good about following it, to be honest.
Either. Yeah.
But the idea of it's great.
George Keller. Is that George Keller?
Gary Keller and Jay Papasan.
Yeah. Great book.
Great. Great book. I need to read it again, probably.
Yeah. It's all, and I've got a list of probably, 15 books that I need to stop looking the other way. And I need to go back and reread, I think that's a great idea. Well, this is super exciting stuff, man. So from short term to the assisted living, the transitional living areas, knowing I guess leveraging relationships is a huge piece of this, because what I was saying earlier, you have to buy it right. In order to buy it right, you need to know somebody with experience and a trustworthy experience and proven results in order to trust their math, so you can take the emotion out of it. So there's so many pieces there that requires leverage on relationships. Would you have any I guess suggestions to the listeners who are looking to build their community and leverage certain types of relationships? Like, who would you suggest to talk to, or what kind of relationship are you looking for? How did that happen for you?
Yeah. So my two partners for the assisted living came from that mastermind. And one of them is the same partner that we bought the Airbnbs with. And, you know, we had also offered on tons and tons of properties during the height of COVID that we were just getting beat out from. But, you know, it's really, like I said earlier, surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are interested in real estate, ideally who are interested in the asset of real estate that you want to invest in, and folks that are going to have complementary skill sets to you. Like, for example, one of my partners, Charlie, he's an engineer. He's the numbers guy. And then my other partner, Luke, he, you know, is really good at the negotiation piece and has a little bit more experience than we do in assisted living homes. And I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm just pulling on their coattails, you know, but no, I feel like also helpful as well. But, you know, just finding people who will go through the trenches with you is really important. You know, I think for any deal, there's three things that you need. You either need to be the hustle, the money, or find the deal. And you don't have to have all three of those things, but you got to have two of those three. And I think that's important from trying to approach like a mentor perspective, or trying to partner with folks is adding value to them without expecting gain. And I think the way to do that is having two of those three things, the hustle, the deal, or the cash, and figuring out how to do that. You know, if you're just getting started and you're able to go knock on doors and cold call and find the deals, well, then you'll be able to find the money, and the money is going to follow the deals. And so that's another way that folks can get started. But yeah, you know, the big thing, finding what asset class you want to focus on. Shiny object syndrome is real, like we've already talked about, and then finding like-minded people who are going to pull you up, pull you along with them, and offering value along the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great suggestion. And what I always say, step number one is finding that path that aligns with your lifestyle, right? Yeah. That reverse engineering piece I mentioned before, find that, and then make sure it works back and matches, you know, who you are, right? And how you want to live. You know, you're passionate about sharing that with physicians, that they, by investing in real estate, they can live the life they want to live. So what life do you want to live? That you don't need to know down to the T and like what city and what kind of car and all that and how many kids. You just need to know like where your focus is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And that choosing the community and then partnering with people who have those complementary skill sets, that's just absolutely great advice. And the listeners out there can find more of this advice at Physicians and Properties. So tell us a little bit about that group.
Yeah, absolutely. So Physicians and Properties Facebook group is where that started. So just started a Facebook group, try and spur on conversation, community, and knowledge through that group. It's kind of grown a little bit. It started a YouTube channel and an Instagram. YouTube really is going to be more so once the podcast starts coming out, which hopefully, you know, sometime in June, we'll start launching those episodes. And if any physicians are interested in being on that podcast, feel free to reach out. Working on revamping a website right now to have a bunch of blog posts already written in on there. Not surprisingly, the assisted living ones are the ones that people are really, really interested in. And so that's been fun. But yeah, really, you know, any physician who wants to join a community of like-minded real estate investors, feel free to request to join the group. We do have a few membership questions because we're trying to keep that pretty exclusive and keep that physicians only as much as possible. But that's a great place. And it's really cool. It's been cool to see because there's people there that have done no deals. There's a decent number of folks who haven't invested in real estate at all who are interested in learning more. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we got some people who are just total studs who are way more advanced than I am and where I would hope to be, you know, in the future. And so it's a broad skill set and a lot of people with varying experience. So hopefully helpful going forward for folks to learn. And like I said, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to add as much value to folks as possible. And so that's what it's all about. A lot of people have helped me get to where I am, and I want to help other physicians do the same.
Very cool. Very cool. Physicians and Properties. You can search that up on Facebook. Is a great place to find you. Also on Instagram, that same handle, they can find you on Instagram as well too. Who is someone that the listeners may not know, but you think that they should know?
That's a good question. We've talked about Tom Burns a lot. So I think Dr. Tom Burns is a good one. If you don't know about him, you have to. It's going to be really helpful for you. I've been really listening a lot to a podcast called the Action Academy podcast with Brian Lubin. He's actually become a friend of mine. He came and spoke to our mastermind one weekend, and the podcast is all about taking action, and it's largely real estate focused, but he interviews multimillionaires, a couple billionaires. He's involved in GoBundance, and his story is incredible. And so it's really cool to learn from some of these really successful real estate investors and business experts. So that's something too, I'd say check out if you want to learn more about taking action. It's called the Action Academy podcast.
Action Academy podcast.
Yeah, that's a great one as well. That's I've been consuming a lot of his content, and he has 5 episodes a week, so you can never run out of things to listen to, and they've all been incredible. So,
that's awesome. Well, very cool, man. Well, I've absolutely enjoyed our conversation. And I think Physicians and Properties is a great place to go. I just want to congratulate you on your journey. Because, one of the questions I love asking is if you could go back and tell your 30-year-old self something, well, you're there still, right, man? You're there and you're on this journey already. So congratulations on that. Keep it up.
Thanks.
And I know you've got a young family, and we talked, last week a little bit about how, the challenge of us hustle people, right? The grinders, like the go get it, how that's difficult when we do have a family. So I just want to congratulate you on where you're at, where you're going. And as always, thank you for your service. And that's sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And all the listeners out there who are in the military, first responders, it's so much that you guys give to us in order for us to live the life that we live. And
thank you.
And so everybody out there, stop complaining. when you think you got it bad, it can always be worse, right? I think we are very fortunate, and I always want to give that gratitude for the people and the families who make that possible. So thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. I agree, though. Family is what it's all about. So thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for your time. This is awesome. Yeah, man, we had fun. We'll definitely have you back too, and talk with you a little more. Everybody, thank you out there for listening. Another episode here on Real Estate Mogul MD. You can find Alex on Physicians and Properties. You can find it in the description of the show, like always. Reach out to us at info@physicianwellsystems.com. If you want to let us know any types of questions or topics or anybody that you would like to speak, or if you would like to be on the show, come on in. If you need more information about Alex and Physicians and Properties, you can email us there as well too. Well, until the next time, Alex, thank you very much, sir. You are headed up and up, and I'm going to come stay in that dome in Colorado. I think I need to see this. So thanks again for your time, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and everybody out there in podcast land, we'll see you next time.